I believe that no marketing department, no consumer insights budget can replicate the magic that we have in our founders and their passion and kind of ethos being a part of the space.
Welcome to Cannabis Matters. I'm Eric Rosen, and we are here today with Nick Fotis of 710 Labs. He's the Chief Marketing Officer over there.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for your time.
Let's start at the beginning. I'm really curious. What drew you into the cannabis space in the genesis of your journey on this front?
So one of the things that I like to say about cannabis, you have really complicated multivariate decision making. You have brand, you have form, you have dosage, you have flavor, you have potency, you have all these multivariate decision making factors that are very empirical, but then you also have very deep-seated social stigma around the product as well. And I think no matter how progressive or accepting of cannabis of a family you grew up in, because of the way our society has treated the plant, that's in some sense, conscious or subconscious, that the impact of that stigma is there. So as kind of a consumer behavior nerd like myself, it was really attractive to me to get to dive in and tackle those challenges. And also would just sort of add to that I'm a builder by nature, and this is a category that's building, and just personally and from a values perspective, I believe in progressing the world in a certain direction and playing a part in acceptance of this plant and breaking down some of the behaviors and baggage that have come out of it in the past. It was a nice kind of harmony of business interest and personal values.
As someone with extensive digital marketing skills and real digital marketing chops, how do you think about leveraging data into actionable insights at 710 Labs, maybe in ways that are similar to what you've done before outside of the space, as well as different?
Yeah, I think my perspective coming into the category, having spent a long career in digital marketing, but coming into the category a bit fresh, what helped me was maybe to not feel as burdened by the challenges as it relates to data in the space, in that it's a nascent category. There isn't great technology infrastructure. You have dramatic fragmentation in technology partners within a state, let alone from state to state. But what I always said was the gift that we get in this category is almost every purchase is linked to a consumer profile. And that is a tremendous amount of data for us to work with. So preceding my time at 710 Labs, where I worked on brands that had a heavier dispensary play, and more of my time went to the retail part of the business, all of my efforts really originated in trying to harness that data and do something with it, whether it was our own insights to guide product development, our messaging work, whether it is decide our marketing tactics, or our kind of far upstream brand and product development and innovation pipelines. So as soon as I stepped into the category, I think having not being as laced with the baggage of it, I was sort of drove us to say, we really need to take advantage of this and look at it, especially in medical markets, look at the business almost like an e-com business, and that it's a lead gen business. And if we're able to acquire those people who are curious or interested or driving to get into the category, if we can capture them and build a relationship with them upstream, we saw a really tremendous long-term value in our relationship with those consumers.
What inflection points have you seen within the space since you've gotten here that you either expected or were maybe unexpected, that was something that you didn't anticipate?
Well, I think the easiest answer to your question is the impact of COVID on the category, especially from my perspective in digital marketing, where almost overnight we saw across our, at the time, 30 to 40 stores, somewhere between, I'd say 10 and 30% of our orders coming through online, to with the flip of the switch and the onset of quarantine regulations, to 98% of our transactions online. Now, over time, that's kind of evened out at, I'd say, somewhere in the upper 60s in most states, and on the whole that I've seen. But I mean, that has a dramatic impact on consumer behavior, consumer decision making. It's certainly, we were rewarded at Grassroots Cannabis, where I was at the time, for some of the heavy lifting that we had done around putting a technology structure in place to be able to take in those orders, both from a retail and marketing perspective and digital perspective. But then also it's had kind of a cascading effect on the importance of online content and merchandising that way, the importance of that kind of one-to-one relationship through text messaging and email. So that's the big sort of tangible one that I feel like I can point to easily.
Shifting gears, I come from a genetics background within the space, so I'm always curious how people stay on top of consumer trends. So as you think about and anticipate what trends are going to look like with respect to hash, whether it's live rosin, whether it's live resin, any of the types, any of the actual sub-product categories of concentrates, how do you think about staying at the bleeding edge from a consumer preference standpoint when you're thinking about what cultivars to grow and what form factor to put it in? Because you are at the bleeding edge. I mean, 710 I can't think of another company that's further at the bleeding edge for just being best in class, bar none, for concentrates. And we'll talk about some of the other product categories in a minute, but specifically for hash, how do you stay on top of what's next?
Well, what I'm about to say, I say with, as a person who spent a lot of my career with consumer insights being a core part of what I do, and with no offense to the consumer insights friends who work in those roles, I have a spiritual answer for you for here, not a process one. And I think it's one that makes our brand and our innovation pipeline much more powerful than those that are informed by quantitative data and focus groups. And it really starts with our leadership. I mean, our founders are individuals who have spent their entire adult and professional careers involved with cannabis, consuming it, finding different ways to improve the process for growing it and manufacturing it. They're people who are on the cutting edge and in contact with the most advanced breeders around the globe. There are people who can step into our production facility today and do basically any job in the production facility if they needed to.
Most cannabis companies are really lucky to find the kind of success that you've had in concentrates, in a single category. It's really hard to master and be known as the head of the class in a single category. And you've managed, 710 has managed to do that in multiple categories. You're also, when I asked the cannabis connoisseur friends of mine what brands they respect, 710 comes up as an answer for both concentrates as well as flower, which, congratulations. It's pretty amazing. You all have created that. How did you manage to bridge the quality constant from one category to another?
One of the words to be truthful, we have a brand that stands for something, absolutely, and it's a brand that's grown and that really means something, which is, I think, first unique in the space. But we don't have your classic, brand pyramid and all those clean documents. But I can tell you that one of our core attributes and values is the term uncompromising. And I think that is really the value that has allowed us to stick to our mantra, which is quality over everything. And, again, having been in the space for a while, like you, I think that both probably from your professional experience being close to companies who have put less than high quality product out into the market, and then also from your personal experience of picking something up and smoking it and knowing that it's not quite right, that's something where we have made a lot of hard decisions, a lot of financially unfriendly decisions in the past for us, but sticking to that quality over everything mantra and not putting product into market that we don't believe is up to the standards of what our founders would smoke and what we would credibly sell to our biggest fans.
Talk to us about your current thinking around just the art and science of building dream teams.
So I've had the fortune of building, this is really the third team in the cannabis space that I've built, from not necessarily, in one case from scratch, in other cases kind of building, rebuilding. I think that your terminology of art and science is very apropos for what we're looking for. And specifically at 710, one of the things that makes our culture special and different is we have a lot of people in professional roles who don't come from functionally that background. We've got a lot of people who have worked in dispensaries, who have worked in cultivation, who are now in marketing or accounting or finance roles or broader operational strategic roles. And where I think that's true of many folks in cannabis, but what you find in many organizations is that gets them through to a certain point, and then they eventually replace those people with those from more professional backgrounds. I think what makes 710 unique is the approach that we've taken to developing that talent in a much more, I think, kind of patient and measured way. Whereas we're not necessarily looking for the person who used to be a bud tender, who's now a salesperson, to behave in the same way that someone from a pharmaceutical or alcohol sales background may operate. And I give a lot of credit to our founders for, I think, their vision and their patience and their passion for developing people and committing to them and giving them a patient runway, and then being able to see what they are bringing to these roles, even though they may not have the classical training background. So that's a part of my team today, is that I have several folks who I inherited who come from those backgrounds, and they're all valuable members of my team.
How do you deal with the balance of needing legacy talent because they have a set of knowledge and organizational IQ, if you will, that is just not, you can't recreate that. It's very special. And at the same time, as companies are approaching inflection points and looking at how do I get from 5 million to 10 million a year or 10 to 20, oftentimes that comes with leveling up talent and growth strategies, which kind of involves bringing in people that are not necessarily from the space. They might be from more classical CPG backgrounds. What advice would you give to an entrepreneur for a growing cannabis company today that is hearing many different voices internally that have many different opinions about this topic, in terms of how can they leverage a balance barometer that will serve them in a way that can benefit from what you've seen in the marketplace?
I think the best advice I would have would be to kind of, as I said earlier, not look at it in a broad philosophical perspective, but really look at it on an individual role by role basis, and be prepared for it to change over time. I mean, everything in cannabis changes so rapidly that I think when you have dug in philosophies that are dogmatic, all you're really doing is asking for trouble. I mean, ultimately, all of us are going to need to be extraordinarily patient and comfortable with change to be successful. So I think my best advice would be, don't sort of draw a line in the sand and expect it to stick, and be prepared for it to change dramatically over time and by role. And I think the healthiest thing for any organization is to have a mix where you're finding that balance, as you said, of those who can guide things from a professional, functional perspective with the authenticity and institutional knowledge that comes from legacy players.
I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart as a proud fan and consumer who has enjoyed 710 and respects 710 as a brand. Like this has been one of the, I was really looking forward to this chat, Nick. It's really nice to meet you, and I look forward to talking more in the future.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks for your passion for 710.